Alright guys, so we got a bonus video here for you today. This week if you check out my article on puremtgo.com when it goes up, you'll see I was taking a look at Simic control in Pauper. The deck is here on my channel if you want to check that out. Feel free to check out those example games, there's the deck tech, etc. So last week though, if you caught my videos, I was doing blue-black control. And I kind of got caught up on this idea of working blue and black control into the Is It control deck that is a very strong competitor in tournament Pauper play. So that deck really runs off, if you don't know, these Locust lands, and they enable you to pump up a large amount of mana. You bring in the prisms here to kind of change the color of that mana, and it runs red, and they use the finisher as Rolling Thunder. So I used this kind of format, and I worked it into a blue-black control option. I figured that red had some nice burn spells to go alongside blue control, but I thought black had some better ones, and you can check those videos out. But this week, when I was playing around with Simic control, I decided, hey, wouldn't it be fun to kind of try and work in green for this as well? So I took some of the same pieces. You see the Rolling Thunders, I showed you the prisms. Of course, going to run 4 of the Mulldrifters. It's a little heavy costed for a 2/2 flyer, but you do have the draw ability, and it is just one of the better cards that you can run into. Some of the other big mana blue spells that we get are the Condescends. This you can pump up to just abnormal heights, make it completely out of reach for your opponent to pay off that X amount. And even if they do manage to counterspell that in response, you still get the Scry ability, which is pretty fantastic. We also have Deep Analysis. Now, 4 cost for 2 draw is not so great in most cases, but Deep Analysis makes it work. This deck, you easily have the mana to do so. In addition to, this deck does give you Flashback, which will allow you to get that going as well. The 3 life is not so bad because you are running a full set of Glimmer Posts, and that will kind of balance that out. Now, alongside that, we have the other staple, Capsize. This is usually a 1 or 2 of in most Is It control decks. I'm bringing both in because I really wanted a lot of control for this deck. As far as creatures were concerned, since we kind of lost out on, there's no lightning bolts, there's no agony warps, that kind of stuff. So we are running 2 Capsizes. This also enables for land control. As far as getting in there and destroying your opponent's land by bouncing them to his hand and casting that multiple times. Now, sticking with that idea, we also brought in 4 copies of Reap and Sow. Now, for those of you who are not familiar, this is a 3 colorless, 1 green spell. You see here it allows you to choose to either destroy a land or search your library for a land and put it onto the battlefield. And it also has the Entwine ability, and what that means is you pay this additional 1 to green, and you can use both the land destruction as well as the search. So there are some versions of the Is It control deck that bring in the Expedition map and allow it to search out the Cloud Posts, or the Glimmer Posts, depending on the situation. And this kind of acts as that, but we also get another control aspect. We get some land destructing going on. When you play the Reap and Snow, and it's pretty easy to ramp into this, Reap and Sow, you get a lot of options. You can bring in the Glimmer Post if you're sitting behind against aggro or something like that and bring your land up. It's a pretty nice thing to bring that directly onto the battlefield. It kind of negates that one rule that is in place that you can only play 1 land per turn. And whenever you can get around those basic rules of Magic, it's a fantastic thing. So another creature we brought in here is the I can't say this word. Mnemonic. People can feel free to harass me over the saying of that, but this spell comes in. It's kind of heavy costed, but usually the deck will run a 1 of to get back important spells like Rolling Thunder or Capsize. You can also use it here for other big spells if you need control, or otherwise in the Reap and Sow. Now, I think this deck does have kind of a not good chance against aggro. We are running the Double Crusher here. I think it's kind of a big finisher for this deck alongside the Rolling Thunder. If you don't get the Rolling Thunders, you have the Crushers, and the Crushers can take care of that kind of thing. But in order to kind of keep balance against the aggro format, we have 3 Moments Peace. Now this is a little spell, 1 in a green, prevent all combat damage with Flashback. So by running 3 copies of this, we actually have 6 turns that we can prevent all damage. That's pretty fantastic for this deck. It's gonna just stall. And that's kind of the big thing with this version of the deck here is, this is completely for fun, just goofing around. You want to stall out and get the win. Then we also brought in 2 copies of Echoing Truth. This is one of those spells, they made a whole bunch of these. Echoing Decay is one that I love a lot. This one allows you to return all non-land permanents and other permanents with that name to their own its hand. This works great for Affinity if you need to get rid of something like that. It works great as well as a control option for Squadron Hawks, Mole Drifters, anything where they're going to be putting out multiples of the same card, and you can take care of them with that. They also brought in kind of an interesting card here is Whiplash Trap. Now, this is a card that allows you to return 2 creatures to their owner's hand, and you have the option as well that if your opponent played 2 or more creatures on this turn and had them enter the battlefield, then you can play only 1 blue to cast this. Most of the time, I'm not expecting to pay only 1 blue. I'm pretty okay with paying 5 mana for the spell, straight up, because this deck is based on kind of a very mana heavy curve. That's kind of the point of bringing in the 8 post lands, is to be able to play big mana spells, and I thought this was a good one. It allows you to kind of boomerang 2 creatures. So I did play 1 game with this deck. I thought it was a really great game and wanted to show you here. You see this is opening hand. Not too bad, not too good. Have a first turn land. We'll get the Simic Chamber on turn 2. Won't let us get the Prism on turn 2, but you see how that plays out. So, starting out, land in play, my opponent's turn. He is going to play Terramorphic. We are faced with an opportunity here. You have the Cloud Post, you have the Forest. Perhaps the smart idea is to play the Cloud Post, but when I make this play, I'm guaranteeing that I can do the Prism on next turn. I wanted to get the Growth Chamber in play. I hate this hold up. You can hold it for Glimmer Posts later on, but I kind of hate the delay in having access to this mana, so I wanted to just make that play as soon as possible. So you see my opponent as well tapped into his Terramorphic, drew out a Plains, plays a Bone Splitter, so now I'm expecting to see mono white aggro. This is kind of a tough thing for this deck, but hopefully, I have 1 Echoing Truth that can deal with the Squadron Hawks and stuff like that, and hopefully we can get something going here. So I'm going to pay the 2 and put the Prism into play before I play my land, and now I'm going to play the Cloud Post. Since there's no real reason to have an open land this turn, you might as well just get that on the field now. So now my opponent plays a Swamp. Now I know he's not playing directly the mono white aggro deck, but it's going to be somewhere along the same lines. You see he does get a Squadron Hawk, and we're going to keep these open just so we know that he has 2 cards in hand that are Squadron Hawk. Now you got an idea of what's going on. It's going to be aggro, and we have this Echoing Truth, so when he does make the mistake and play out all his Hawks, we're going to have the mana available to Echoing Truth and get those all off the field at the same turn. So now we're sitting at 4 mana. We could pass the turn. You could hold the Condescend to counterspell a Hawk, but we have the Echoing Truth, so I want him to play those Hawks. I think it's going to be pretty good to let those come down and be able to control those with this. I'm actually going to go ahead and just cast the Reap and Sow without the Entwine value, just to start getting this post engine going, and I do grab a second post, Cloud Post that is. Really no need for Glimmer Post at this point in time. You want to get more of these Cloud Posts going and save that big life gain for later on. We do also have the Wall in hand, so we will be able to get this back and replay it actually, if we so desire. So now my opponent does not play a Hawk, does play a Skyfisher. So now we know he's going to probably attack for 3 and switch the Bone Splitter over. Actually he doesn't though. Probably should have. But we're gonna, still be in good condition. We have this Echoing Truth, which we are saving for these Hawks later on. So we make our land in play, and we actually have the mana available to drop this Crusher on this turn, and he's gonna have no answer for it. So this is pretty great. Like I said, the Crusher is one of the big win conditions. Rolling Thunder is the other. So we have both of those in hand. We got one of those on the field. We're sitting pretty good. Despite the fact that my opponent has 2 flyers and pretty good aggro base. Now, this Crusher you see is also going to draw my opponent. It's going to force him to play these Hawks. Now let's take a second to slow this down. I play the Crusher. It's going to force him to play these Hawks because that allows him to have 2 more permanents on the field that can be sacrificed to this Annihilator ability. Now another interesting thing you see, he played a Hawk here, so you take 1 off the revealed, but he did search up a new Hawk. So he was running 4, he did for whatever reason not grab all 4 on the first turn. But he's going to play both. Like I said, the Crusher and the Annihilator ability is going to force him to play those Hawks. He's going to swing through, and that's fine. We're going to have to take the damage. No big deal there. But we are going to be sitting really good. He is tapped out here. He has blue in the deck, so he could be playing counter spells. But right now we have the ability. We're going to use the Echoing Truth. You're going to bounce the Hawks, and now, whereas these Hawks were put into play as blocking for this 8 damage as well as sacrifice material, what you're going to do is prevent both of those things from happening. Now, when this Crusher attacks, he is going to kill 2 permanents, most likely lands in this case, could be the Bone Splitter, and he's not going to be able to block this 8 damage. So that was really kind of a fantastic play on our part. It went, you couldn't have asked for anything better. You had the cards in hand, he drew the Hawks, he had to make that play. If I were him, I would have done the same thing. I would not have expected this Echoing Truth. But it's one of these things. It just things work out perfectly in some games. So you see there, he did get rid of one of his plains and the swamp, and he's going to have to take the 8 damage. Now we come to our second main phase here. We have a lot of options as far as play goes. I am going to play the wall actually to get back the Reap and Sow. Now this is a position where I know that he has all 4 Squadron Hawks in hand, and I could actually go for the Echoing Truth. On the off chance that he gets rid of this, I have the Echoing Truth in hand. I can get rid of those Hawks when they come back down. But I'm going to, go on the assumption, I'm going to make that leap of faith, actually, and say that he is not going to be able to deal with the Crusher. He's going to only play 1 Hawk here, and that's it. In fact, I was very wrong. He did have the Journey to Nowhere, so he will be able to get rid of that Crusher, and I have no answer for this in the deck. So, it is what it is. But we did take that chance. We are still going to have the ability now. We can play the Entwine cost on this Reap and Sow and get rid of the island or the plains, however we so decide. Things get better. We also draw a Moment's Peace. So this, 4/3 Skyfisher is trouble, but we have, a really great out with this. We only have 2 green, which we are going to have to use for the Reap and Sow, but we do have the Prism on the field, and that will allow us to find another green mana for Moment's Peace if we need it. So you see here, I kind of doing math. One thing that kind of trips me up, it's not my strong suit here. I will use the Cloud Post instead of tapping this forest, and just so I'm not wasting mana. This leaves me mana open for the Condescend. If I played the forest, I would have to tap a Cloud Post or both islands, and I'm wasting mana. So this is really the correct way. If you want to just take a quick look right here, the correct way to pay for this is to use both Cloud Posts, the Growth Chamber, and change one of those Cloud Posts into one of the mana into a green. So we're going to use this. This time I am going to grab the Glimmer Post. This will give me a little more of a cushion. You see I'm going up 3 life off the Locust Lands. This means that I can take this 4 damage from him on the next turn, and I will actually tap out to play Deep Analysis instead of leaving myself open for Condescend and Moment's Peace. So, it's kind of what I was talking about with the Reap and Sow. You have the opportunity in the mid to late game, you can grab the Glimmer Posts to kind of deal with the fact that you're sitting across from aggro. This whole time we're kind of ramping up to be able to play Rolling Thunder. We did draw a second Prism, so we have our second red mana source. Kind of the biggest answer to this deck is going to be getting rid of these Prisms. You see I draw even another one. So I'm going to use the Cloud Post. I'm going to put both Prisms into play eventually, and we are going to cast this Reap and Sow to again prevent the need for Moment's Peace. When you have the Moment's Peace, it's great to use, but if you're going to just ramp up the mana, hold it till as long as possible, so you can really kind of surprise him with that combat trick. You see I grab another Glimmer Post, I'm going up to 4 damage, it's like the whole last turn never happened. Going to be able to put that Oracle in play now. He reveals Muldrifter. I could use it, evoke it to draw cards, but there's no point. We're really going to need it as an actual body if it comes down to it. But we get the other Prism in play, we hit another land drop, and now you're looking at pretty good mana-wise. This is exactly what you're looking for at this point in the game with the Rolling Thunder. You have your red mana sources, you have a whole bunch of mana stacked up. Each of these Cloud Posts are tapping for 4 mana each. So my opponent's not going to be able to really swing in for the win here. At this point in time, you're counting lands. You're just waiting for that to happen. I am going to play Moment's Peace here, get it into the graveyard. Just no chances on 11. I could sit here and take 5 damage off that, but why not? Might as well use the Moment's Peace. I had the mana open and available for it. So let's pass this turn. You see he plays one of the Squadron Hawks. Let's get that out of here. You look at your mana sources. We have 8 off of just these Cloud Posts alone. So draw yet another land. Should have put this into play first before doing this. Now I'm gonna, as you watch this, this is kind of my inept math skills again. You see me start to play, stop to play, drop the land, changing the mana, doing some calculations. It's just bad math on my part, and I can't say anything for that. But we do get this Rolling Thunder off. 4-12, my opponent is tapped out. He will have no answers, and that's game over. Now I will say, if you caught any of my blue-black videos where I was doing this deck and I was dying for a video like this, where you had a game that went so perfect, we had the Crusher come in and be a real nuisance. Here he is to the game. We had the Echo Truth just landed perfectly, Rolling Thunder. It's once in a rare time that you do land such a perfect playthrough like this, but I wanted to show you guys this. I think it's a really great example of how this deck can work. The deck will not work like this all the time. If you get a faster aggro deck, you could be in big trouble. But this is definitely a very casual deck and a lot of fun, so I do recommend you take a look right here. If you want to pause the video, check my deck list, and just give it a run.